Today, Frank Turek released a new video regarding morality, and in it he makes two critical mistakes. And that isn't the first time. Every time he does the same two things. First, he claims there is an objective moral standard and a moral lawgiver, God. But without evidence, that is merely an empty statement. Frank has stated before that people don't want to believe in God because they don't want to be morally accountable for their actions. No, Frank. People don't believe due to a lack of evidence. The moral question is always secondary to the existence question. If people don't want to worship God because they don't want him as a moral authority or they think he is immoral, then they would be mesotheists, not atheists. First, prove God to exist, and then we can discuss the moral authority of God. The second thing Frank does is say, well, I did not determine murder is wrong. No, Frank, you didn't. Quite simply because murder is a label we assign to an act after we have determined this act to be immoral. Let me explain. What is murder? Well, murder is the killing of a person against their will by the hands of another person. We can all agree on this, I suppose. And that would mean that murder, or killing a person against their will by the hands of another person, is immoral. But is it always? Let's just look at the act of killing a person itself. Is it always immoral to kill a person against their will by the hands of another person? To answer this, you would need to know what constitutes killing another person against their will. Is it an accident, self-defense, an unintentional killing, spontaneous and intentional killing, or was it a planned and intentional killing? Or was it all of the above? Well, okay, so the answer is all of them are descriptions of a situation where one person is killed against their will by another person. And not all of them are considered to be immoral. But can we conclude that all premeditated killings of people are immoral? Well, no, we can't. There is one situation that is the same act as a premeditated murder, and that is an execution. The difference between a premeditated murder and an execution is merely the justification that is awarded to an execution, through which it is considered to be moral to perform executions. Of course, people will disagree on the morality of executions. Murder is a label for a certain act that has been deemed to be immoral. The label does not determine whether or not the act is immoral. The circumstances in which the act takes place determine whether or not the act can be justified. Murder is not immoral because it is murder. Murder is immoral as society has determined that certain situations in which a person is killed against their will by the hands of another person are considered to be immoral. To classify these situations, they are labeled as murder. Frank takes a label to determine the act to be immoral. This is the wrong way around. The correct way is to look at the act first and then determine which label to put on the act. For the act of killing a person against their will by the hands of another person, there are several labels to choose from, and not all of them mean the act was immoral. The principle is quite simple. Look at the act and the circumstances, then determine the label. Yet Frank seems to get it wrong every time. Thanks for watching.